Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kamil Kuźmiak and in today's episode I'm gonna show you how to get the best quality shooting 4K 120 frames per second with the Sony FX30. Let's get to it. So first of all, if you want to shoot the slow motion with the Sony FX30 or Sony A6700 for example, you need to ask yourself if you really need to use 120 frames per second. For the most applications, 4K 60 frames per second is more than enough. If you're shooting people walking or anything like that, if you put your 60 frames per second footage on the 24 frames per second timeline, you can slow down the footage 40%, which is quite okay for most of the applications. And another thing you need to consider is that 4K 60 frames per second is the best possible quality coming out of these cameras, juiciest uncompromised quality, because in 4K 60 frames per second you get the full sensor readout, so you take advantage of the full 6K resolution of the sensor. That 6K resolution video gets downsampled in camera into 4K. Because of that process, all the noise that's residing in the image gets scaled down, gets smaller, more fine, and instead of looking like this big ugly blotchy digital noise, it's so compressed into smaller particles resembling a little bit something like film grain. So even in the worst case scenario, if you shoot in the 4K 24 or 60 frames per second and you get a little bit of that noise in the shadows, it's still quite usable and it's not that ugly. When you shoot in 4K 120 frames per second, you don't get the benefit of downsampling. In that case, the camera crops into 4K portion of the sensor, because the full resolution of the sensor is something around 6000 by 4000 pixels and the 4K portion of the sensor is like 3840 by 2160, so it applies that additional 1.5 crop on top of the crop that you already have because you are using APS-C sensor. Altogether, when you shoot in 4K 120 frames per second, you are working with 2.25 times crop. To give you some perspective, Micro Four Thirds cameras, they have 2 times crop. So in that case, you get a little bit smaller sensor than the Micro Four Thirds. So you need to act accordingly. And don't get me wrong, it's still very high quality, crispy resolution. However, you lose some of the benefits of bigger APS-C sensor. Another benefit of shooting in 4K 60 frames per second is that you get the full advantage of dual base ISO of the camera, so you can shoot on ISO 800 or the second base ISO of ISO 2500. By shooting 4K 60 frames per second, you get very good low light performance because you are using the full low light capabilities of the sensor. You shoot less frames per second, 60 instead of 120. You can have your shutter speed to 120th of a second, or maybe you can even break the rule and go into 60th of the second shutter speed. You can let way more light into the camera. If there is any like low light situation, I would recommend to stay away from the 4K 120 frames per second and stick to the 4K 60. However, there is plenty of situation when 4K 120 frames per second it's actually beneficial. In order to take a full advantage of 120 frames per second, you need to shoot something very dynamic, very explosive, because if it's just somebody walking down the street slowly, it looks cool in 4K 60 frames per second. That kind of static motion in 5 times slow motion can be a little bit boring and dragging. However, if somebody is doing a backflip, you're breaking a glass, doing some trick on the skateboard or anything like that, the 4K 120 frames per second is very beneficial then. When your project is in 24 frames per second, you can get a very nice 5 times slow motion. Also, it's useful if you have to deliver your video in 60 frames per second. When you are using 120 frames per second, you can use 2 times slow motion. That extra crop that's a little bit problematic can be beneficial in certain situations. One situation is shooting macro. I shoot a lot of macro because I shoot videos of wristwatches, like product videos, and very often I hold them in my hand and move them around, or sometimes I use the Lazy Susan turntable to spin them. Thanks to that extra crop, I can get much closer macro without using extension tubes or some better macro lens, and then that 5 times slow motion helps me to smooth out out the motion. Every little jerkiness of the motion, every little imperfection is exaggerated by the macro scale, so slowing the footage down 5 times actually helps a lot. Another great benefit of 120 frames per second, if you need longer zoom and you have plenty of light in the middle of the day and it's like very harsh sun, you get the benefit of using 250th of a second shutter speed. If you close the aperture a little bit and use that shutter speed in 120 frames per second, you're probably not gonna have to use any ND filter. Let's say if you're shooting sports like football, baseball, any outdoors sport or outdoors event that's very dynamic, maybe even like skateboarding competition or any other extreme sport that's very explosive, very fast, maybe like a basketball game outside, maybe you are shooting some wildlife, some animals. This downside of 120 frames per second becomes the benefit. Because of the crop, you get a longer lens, so you can get closer to the action without actually having like a heavier, bigger zoom lens. 1 or 2 seconds of stable footage will give you 5 to 10 seconds of slowdown footage. In those situations, that's actually where the 120 frames per second benefits you. So in general, it's perfect for any sort of like B-roll, something very dynamic. In the daylight, when you have plenty of light, then it's the best. However, I've noticed online that a lot of people complain about 4K 120 frames per second from FX30 and A6700. They say it's unusable, it's too noisy, it's too difficult to work with. And it's actually not true. When you shoot in that mode, you have a smaller sensor, you don't have APS-C sensor anymore, you have something more in the micro four thirds territory. So you need to lose that APS-C energy, you know, you need to act accordingly to the sensor size, which means getting a wider lens, faster lens, letting more light in, making sure that your exposure is on point. So number one important thing is wider lens, because with that amount of crop, most of your lenses gonna become very narrow. You need a fast lens, the fastest the better, because shooting in that mode, light is very crucial. For example, for myself, I considered 4 different lenses. So the first lens I considered for myself was Sigma 16mm 1.4. It's quite wide and fast. It's also famous for being very sharp. What I didn't like about this lens is the fact that my main lens that I use most of the time is Sigma 18 to 35. From 18mm to 16mm, there is not that big of a jump. It is a little bit wider. I wanted something that will battle that crop a little bit more. Then I was considering Sony 15mm f1.4, a little bit smaller, more lightweight, even slightly wider than the 16mm. But the problem is that that lens is a little bit more pricey. It was a little bit outside of my budget. I couldn't justify spending that money just to get from 16 to 15mm. I wanted to get something wider, so then I started considering getting Sony 11mm f1.8, and it's a great lens. It's very small, super wide, but the problem is that f1.8 is not that fast anymore. I would get a wider field of view, but I wouldn't be able to let more light in, and that's a very important factor. Then I found something what I believe to be the perfect solution, and that lens is the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. In my opinion, it's the absolute sweet spot. A roughly similar price like the 16mm by Sigma. It's much wider because it's 13mm, but it's still a very fast 1.4 lens. The downside of this lens is that it's a little bit bigger and heavier, and this is the lens I use right now. So as you can see, it's quite wide. I'm very close to it, literally, like I extend my arm and I can touch it. So you see I'm like pretty much right in front of the camera. You can see like a wide field of view. It's a little bit heavier, bigger lens, but it's also built very well. It's made of metal. It has a physical aperture ring. It's very handy to work with. It has very nice and smooth focusing ring. I'm very happy with it. Autofocus, it's very silent and it works very fast, very smooth. That actually makes a massive difference between 18mm, and now you can see how it looks with the 13mm. So yeah, it's quite a big difference. So you have your wider, faster lens. What else you can do to improve the quality of the footage? It's better to stick to the low ISO and even to go below the base ISO if you shoot in S-Log 3. If you shoot in more contrasty gamma like S-Cineton, you can use the lowest possible ISO, which is I think like ISO 100 in that gamma, and that's gonna be the easiest to set your exposure, because in that color profile you can judge the exposure by what you can see on the screen quite easily. However, most of the times I'm assuming you're gonna be mixing your slow motion footage with your regular footage that's shot in S-Log3, because that's the best mode to get the most out of your camera. In that case, you can shoot your 4K 120 frames per second footage in S-Log3, but you shouldn't behave the same way like it was a big sensor. It's a smaller sensor, it's cropped, so you don't have that much dynamic range to play with, so there is no point to massively overexpose your footage. There is no point to go to the higher ISO, because in that case you are trying to use the dynamic range that it's no longer there. However, even though you're gonna get slightly less stops of dynamic range shooting in 120 frames per second, it's still worth it to use S-Log3 just for the color science, for the easy blend between the clips, and then you can grade everything the same way, and it's gonna be way easier to color match if everything is shot in S-Log3, rather than trying to color match your S-Cinetone footage with your S-Log3 24 frames per second footage, for example. So the rule number one, stick to ISO 200. That's the only ISO you use in 4K 120 frames per second in S-Log3. If you need to go higher than that by raising the ISO to adjust your exposure, it means that you don't have enough light to use this mode, and you are better off sacrificing the slow motion to slightly worse slow motion at 4K 60 frames per second, rather than getting that absolutely horrendous noisy footage. So if you are shooting in more controlled environment, let's say in the studio, you have your aperture light or any other light that you can control, and you are shooting some product video or music video in the studio, I would recommend to set your exposure using gray card. So I'll show you, I have one here. I have this little chest bag. It was made by my colleague that has a company that makes accessories for DOPs and grips and ACs. I will dedicate a separate video about this product because, yeah, I love it. I think it's super cool. So I have my cards, you can buy them on Amazon for like $5 or something like that. I have the black card for checking the clipping in the shadows. I have the white card if I want to check the clipping in the highlights. Medium gray card for setting up the exposure. So basically you need to go into your zebras and you need to set your zebra to 44 IRE, and then when you use the middle gray card, if you see the zebra showing up on the card, you know that you have the right exposure. And then after the color grading and applying the LUT that converts the S-Log3 into Rec 709, you're gonna get the perfect exposure. Entire noise floor gonna be pushed down into the clipping point and buried in the shadows. To achieve that right exposure, you should let more light in, so either open your aperture. If your aperture is wide open and there is still not enough light, you can add more artificial light. If there is still not enough light and you want to shoot in 120 frames per second, you can break the shutter rule and go from 1 250th of a second to 1/125 of a second. You're gonna get twice more light into the lens. However, if you are still underexposed, you opened the aperture wide open, you broke the shutter rule, your artificial light is not strong enough to give you more output, or maybe you don't have artificial light, in that case it means that you shouldn't use 4K 120 because you don't have enough light, and you should compromise and go into 4K 60 frames per second, and then you can change your ISO to 2500 and you're gonna be sorted with the light. However, what to do if you are on the go, out and about, shooting B-roll outside, and there is no time to walk around with your gray card and setting the exposure using the card? There is two ways you can go about it. Set your ISO to 200 and then you can use the Rec 709 LUT to double check how the image looks, set the exposure by eye to make sure that what you can see on the screen is the exposure that you actually are happy with. There is no point to overexpose so much to get some more details in the shadows. You're not gonna get those details in the shadows because the overall dynamic range in 120 frames per second because of the crop is a little bit decreased. You need to remember that when you move away from the native ISO in S-Log3 or any other gamma, you're gonna change the clipping point of that gamma. So basically, if you go down a few stops of ISO from 800 to 200, the clipping point of highlights gonna move down slightly a little bit. So if you're gonna go from native ISO 800 to ISO below native, which is 200, you're gonna have to change your clipping point so you get back your zebras. And in that case, you can shoot in ISO 200, keep the zebras on, and you just make sure that you expose as bright as possible without getting any overexposure on your subject. If the zebra is showing up on the background, on the very bright light source or some white wall that is reflecting a lot of sunlight, then it's it's okay. Basically a hotspot. If the zebra is showing up on the hotspots, you know that it's okay. However, if the zebra is showing up on your person's face, then you know that you are overexposing the face. You need to close the aperture a little bit, or maybe dim down the ND filter a little bit. That's how you can control the exposure on the go. Or you can set the zebra to around 51 IRE and make sure that it's showing up on the skin. When you film people, then it's very handy. So you can have two zebras programmed, one for skin tones, which is 51, and one for clipping point. And then when you are shooting people, you go to the zebra number 1 and you make sure that every time you set the exposure, the zebra is showing up on the person's face, on the bride's cheek, for example. And then when you are shooting just the architecture or some other objects or cars or anything like that, when you don't have the skin tones, use your zebra to make sure that nothing that matters is clipping, basically. If you have the building, there is a zebra on the facade of the building, it means that you are clipping some important information on the foreground, but there is no zebra on the building, but you can see a sun on the sky, there is zebra on the sun, it means that you are clipping the hotspot. That's actually fine. That's pretty much the fast way of judging exposure on the go when you don't have time to play around with the gray cards. And also you can use the camera LUT, converting the image on the screen from SLOG3 to Rec 709. You can use shortcut button to quickly look up how the image looks with the LUT applied, convert it to contrasty video, and you can see if the image looks a little bit too dark or overexposed. So that's another handy tool you should use to judge your exposure. Okay guys, so now to prove that I'm not telling you any fairy tales, I'm gonna show you a little bit of slow motion B-roll, and hopefully you're gonna like the quality, so let's do it.
Why don't you keep me? Let me stay around you. Keep me like someone whom you could die for. Why don't you keep me? Let me stay around you. Keep me like someone whom you could die for.
Okay guys, to summarize, 4K 120 frames per second from Sony FX30 is 100% usable. It's a great tool to get a very nice buttery smooth slow motion. You just need to keep in mind that the best quality, the absolute peak performance of those cameras is 4K 60 frames per second and 4K 120 frames per second. It's something you should treat like this bonus feature where you are stepping a little bit outside of the comfort zone. You are no longer in the peak performance of the camera. You need to compensate a little bit, paying attention to the exposure, paying attention to letting enough light in, using a wider lens and stuff like that, but still you get a very nice crispy high quality 10-bit video with a little bit of a compromise, but still if you know how to use it, you can get a great result with it. To be honest, it's a never-ending story, because probably the new versions of those cameras like Sony FX30 or something like that maybe gonna have 4K 120 frames per second without any compromises. Probably you're gonna get 4K 200 frames per second. That's gonna have the same compromises, like a little bit smaller sensor, a little bit worse low light performance and all that stuff. Then people gonna be complaining that there is a compromise on 240 frames per second. But to be honest, me personally, I'm gonna be happy with that, because I prefer if companies let me to use the features to push the camera to the limit, to squeeze the most out of the tool, rather than, you know, using the cripple hammer and capping the quality at some point. This is just my opinion. If you have different opinion, you can share it in the comments below. I think that's gonna be all for today. I hope you found the information useful. If it was useful, make sure to leave the thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to my channel because there is more content on the way. Recently, you can also support my channel, so you can get some cool badges and some custom emoticons and some other perks. So if you'd like to help out the channel, you are more than welcome to do so. Regardless, I really appreciate each and every one of you. Every comment, every like, your time spending watching those videos matters very much to me and help me to continue doing it. Alright guys, that's it for today, and see you in the next one.